If I were to describe the Square Enix E3 presentation in one word, it would be pretty. The games they showed off looked quite pretty, and the presentation as a whole was pretty good. I don't think that they saved E3. Like, I see some people online saying Square Enix saved E3. Perhaps if you're really into JRPGs as a genre, if that's your favorite game genre, then it saved E3 for you. In my eyes, like, I'm not a big fan of JRPGs. I feel like they're kind of slow and kind of boring for me. But I thought their presentation was quite good. I thought the games they showed off were pretty good. And I'm going to go over all of them right here. The first game they showed off is what people predicted to be here, and I thought this was one of the best game showcases of the entire E3, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake. So people knew that this was going to be here pretty much. People have been looking forward to this game for a long time, and PlayStation released a trailer telling the release date ahead of time before this conference even happened on their YouTube channel. However, for those who missed that video, this was the first really good in-depth look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, and it was very nice. They started off with a teaser trailer, which I thought, is that it? Is that all they're going to show? It was definitely not. So they had the makers of the game come up to talk about the game, what it's all about, why we should look forward to it, and how different it is from the original Final Fantasy VII. And they said that with how much they've changed and added to this game, it's basically a solid standalone game in its own right. So you don't need to compare it to the original Final Fantasy VII, even though people will, but they say it's different enough that you could consider it its own game, and they said it's a perfect starting point for newcomers to the Final Fantasy series. Who knows, if it's really good and my friends get it, because I don't have a PS4 or an Xbox One, so I couldn't get it, it's not coming to Switch. But my friends have PS4s, so if they get it, I might play it off of them, and maybe it'll get me into Final Fantasy. I don't know. I've never played a single Final Fantasy game, and neither have any of my friends, which is why we're sort of looking at this from an outsider perspective, from people who've never played the series. Neil Pabon, the senior manager, walked us through the gameplay, talking about specifics. Like, I like this part, because he came and talked about very specific stuff about how the game works, about combat, about gameplay, and he said that the combat is real-time action and strategic commands. So there's both of those for people who prefer to play their own specific way. For example, each press of the square button on your controller is a swing of your sword, and your attacks are in real time. So they changed the combat system quite a lot from the original Final Fantasy VII, which was kind of controversial from what I've heard. I know there's a lot of people who wanted to have the original sort of strategic, slow, turn-based combat, but this one has real-time combat. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Xenoblade style combat. You just use... Oh, actually, it's not exactly like the Xenoblade combat. That's just the only JRPG I've played that has real-time combat. So this one's a little bit different because you have to press the square button to swing your sword. In Xenoblade, you swing automatically. Cloud needs ATB, which I don't know what ATB stands for, but there's a meter called ATB which fills up slowly over time, but it fills up faster when you hit standard attacks. And once it's full, you enter tactical mode, which slows down time unless you choose actions from the command menu. And this is where it becomes more of that turn-based style stuff, where you get to think, you get to choose what moves to use, what spells and abilities, basically. And you can use abilities like Brave Bird is the first one that they showed off. Which if you played Final Fantasy VII, I'm sure you know what that is. I'm not quite sure. You can also use items in battle using your ATB charges. Because from what I saw, like in the trailer they showed off as they described this, the ATB meter had two charges, like two layers to go to, and it had to fill up both to go into tactical mode, but you could use just one of them to use an item. If you have enough materia, you can use ATB charges to cast spells mid-battle also. So that's another thing you can do in combat. And then they showed off one of the other characters other than Cloud, which is Barret, which was in a trailer already before for this game, but they went into much more detail about Barret's combat, talking about how he can attack enemies at distance. So he has like a gun, he can shoot at range, he can generate ATB charges, he has different abilities from Cloud. All the characters in the game have unique abilities in battle. You can easily rotate between party members with the push of a button. So if one party member's in trouble, say caught by a giant monster or caught by a boss, switch characters and you can shoot that arm that's holding the main character and free them from your grip, and then you like interact with each other saying thank you. I think this is really cool. I like how they interact with each other, how these fights could change like fluidly, and interactions could change fluidly. to fit the situation. I think it's really cool and lets you change up your playstyle as you go. Additionally, your teammates fight even when you're not manually controlling them, so you don't have to focus on constantly switching between your teammates to be efficient in combat. You can just play as one if you want to and just swap when you need to, since they'll attack automatically when you're not controlling them. So basically, the way that what they're trying to do with the combat system is allow for two styles of play. One for people who like to work on the fly. You can set shortcuts for ease of access to different commands and actions, and you can just do real-time combat like that. Or you can be more strategic using the slowdowns and stuff like that in order to think about what you're doing. And I think that's pretty cool. They let you play it basically any way you want to in this type of game. Then they showed a boss fight against a giant metal scorpion sentinel. It was called a scorpion sentinel, that was the name of the boss. It might have been, you might have fought it in Final Fantasy VII originally, I don't know, I never played it. But this boss battle looked really cool. Like there were cinematic effects going on everywhere, like you're fighting and sometimes the boss would jump into the wall and then attack and then grab one of you and you have to free them with the other one and stuff like that. Like, it's really pretty. This game looks really good. The graphic style is fantastic. I love that stuff. There's a lot of combat that they showed off too. They showed off a lot of gameplay here. I thought this was a really good presentation. Some other things that I noticed in this, there was the limit meter, of course. You could stagger an enemy if you hit it just the right way. You can use combos. There's MP, HP. I saw Cloud use cross slash and other abilities like that. And then Tetsuya Nomura, the director, came up to talk about the game a little bit more. Said that there's a playable demo at the E3, so people are really going to go in depth with this game. And then they showed, at the end, a new, longer trailer showing some cutscenes and some gameplay, but most importantly, what people have been looking forward to, it showed Tifa in action. So we could see her move. She's sort of a close combat, more athletic fighter. It also had Aerith there, which we kind of already saw the model of before, but showed Aerith doing the heals and stuff like that. And it showed some enemies, bosses, landscapes, and another big reveal, Sephiroth. It showed the model for Sephiroth in here, the main big bad guy of the game. And it was pretty cool. I liked this model. He looked edgy as per usual. Everyone was talking, we heard their voices, and they gave a release date. Which technically, like I said, PlayStation accidentally, or purposefully, revealed the release date in an earlier trailer posted to their YouTube channel, but for people at E3, this is the first time they saw it. It's releasing March 3rd, 2020. So it's still about half a year, a little over half a year left for that. There's also a deluxe edition and a first class edition, which is even bigger than the deluxe edition, available now for pre-order for people who want that stuff. I'm sure they're quite expensive, but you can look them up if you're really interested in this game. I'm hoping this is good. Hopefully this is actually a good game, because 2020 is shaping up to be a great year for games. I think 2020 is going to be fantastic. This year is a little bit slower, I think, but 2020 is going to be really good with Cyberpunk and this game, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Moving on from that though, they briefly talked about Life is Strange 2. This was what I thought one of the weaker parts of this conference, because Life is Strange 2 is already released, and it wasn't even like a Chapter 3 trailer or anything like that. It was just a Life is Strange 2 trailer, showing Let's Players like Jacksepticeye and other players, and their reactions to playing the game for some reason. I don't know what the point of this trailer was. It was a little bit weird to throw in here. For me, it felt like it was a time filler, and it was a little bit strange, but they quickly moved on from that to Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, which is a classic game being remastered for PS4, smartphones, and Switch. This is a weird combo of systems, PS4, smartphone, and Switch, but from what I saw of the gameplay, because they showed off some of the gameplay, it seemed like a game that could work on them. It's a fairly simple looking game, has fairly simple mechanics, but apparently a lot of people love the series. So Crystal Chronicles is coming back for these systems. They did a quick trailer for Octopath Traveler on PC, which both I and my friends and I, thought was strange, because it already released on PC a while ago. It already has reviews, it already has all sorts of stuff on there. I don't know if they needed to do another trailer for it, but similar to the Life is Strange 2 stuff, they showed off that trailer, people know what the game is about, they quickly moved on to Dragon Quest Builders 2. This is my bias showing. This is my favorite game of this presentation, just because I love sandbox games, I love building, I love adventuring, I feel like sandbox games allow you to make your adventure more than any other genre. And I've heard good things about this game. It showed off a lot about it, the story and the gameplay, how the game is bigger than ever. They showed a variety and options of things to build, how to build your own city, how to gain allies, and how to defeat evil. But one thing I want to point out is I loved the announcer for this game. They were so enthusiastic and they were loving it. It was a fun trailer to watch purely because of the announcer for this thing. Whew, yeah, but they showed off the overall, basically a lot of things to do in the game, like farming, battling, gliding, building. They showed off Malroth, which is your main partner in the game. They showed how you save the world. They said there's a demo in the PlayStation Store starting June 27th. And they said that the biggest announcement here, in my opinion, the one thing that I love the most, 4-player co-op. 4-player co-op. And I'm guessing this is local. I'm not sure about online. They just said you could play with 3 friends in co-op. That's all they said about it. But this is what I'm looking forward to because I'm going to be spending some time in the same apartment as my friends this fall. And I'm going to get this game. We're going to enjoy this. We're going to have fun in here. I'm excited about this game, needless to say. From there, they went on to more Dragon Quest news, which is Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, S Definitive Edition, Remind, Birth of Sleep. No, yeah, it's a long name, but finally, they're bringing Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age, to the Switch. This was the first game ever announced to be coming to Switch, for those who remember, and it's coming like several years after the Switch was shown off, ever since they announced it. They delayed this game for so long, but it does have a cool feature that aren't in the other versions, which is the ability to play in 2 different styles, classic or modern style. Classic style looks like really old school Dragon Quest games with lots of nice sprite work, like it's a pixelated sprite work game. I thought the classic style looked really cool though, because it's not just a visual effect. They've literally remade the whole game in a classic Dragon Quest style, and you can easily switch between the 2 at any time. The way they made that work is super cool. You'd have to see the trailer to really understand, but I like that a lot, and I like that that's a Switch exclusive thing. I think that'll give people who are big fans of the series a reason to get this game. It also has a full orchestral soundtrack, and they showed off a little bit of the story, but everyone knows the story of this game since it already released. Not on the Switch, but the game itself already released on other platforms. They went on to the Square Enix Collective games, which for those who don't know, Square Enix Collective is basically their initiative to fund all sorts of smaller titles from different studios to let them work on their own things. And they showed off some 2020 games with PC developmental footage for most of them. For the first one being Circuit Superstars, which is coming in 2020 to Steam, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. They didn't show too much about it. It was developmental footage. And they also showed, for some reason, Battalion 1944, which is a game that's available now already on Steam. It released in 2019, and it's a competitive first-person shooter, which I would not recommend buying. I looked it up on Steam. Apparently the developers of that game kind of swindled a lot of people, and it has really bad reviews now. I wouldn't get it, but they showed that off, so that's something. They had a little small announcement, which reminds me a little bit of the Ubisoft conference because it has to do with music. But this is a much better announcement than Ubisoft's music. Square Enix music is now available on streaming devices, including the Final Fantasy soundtracks. And that's basically all the streaming services you could think of. Like, I'm not going to list them off here. I don't have them recorded here, but there was a lot of them. At least 9, I believe. Maybe more than that. I think there was more than that, actually. It was available on a lot of services, and you can probably find it on whatever you're using, so that's pretty cool for people who love Final Fantasy music. In fact, I like Final Fantasy music. I don't even play the games, but I like the music. There's another predicted thing in this presentation, which is a DLC for Kingdom Hearts 3. And this DLC is called Star Mind. It's just called Remind. I don't know what the symbol is in between the Re and the Mind, but it's an expansion for Kingdom Hearts 3 to continue the story, and it's releasing on July 2nd. I don't know how I feel about this stuff. Kingdom Hearts isn't my type of series, and I saw people in the YouTube comments being like, hey, genius idea. Let's just split up the story into segments and then sell them as DLC. That'll make people love us. But yeah, it's a little bit weird that they're continuing the story in something else that you have to buy. Regardless though, it's coming this winter on Xbox One and PS4, and I'm sure people who have already bought Kingdom Hearts 3 will get this because they want to see the end of the story. The people who play these games are really into these games, so they're going to get it. Next is another expansion for one of their big MMOs, Final Fantasy XIV Online, and this is the Shadowbringers expansion, releasing on July 2nd. Apparently this is really big news because this is a big expansion. In fact, they said that this is like a new game in terms of the amount of content in there, comparable to a standalone RPG in content. There's many new elements for people who haven't played the game yet before, like new jobs and new races, and it's a new part of the Final Fantasy chapter before Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out. That's what they were basically saying. It's just promotional talk, you know. They showed a world premiere launch trailer, which looked pretty neat. Like, I don't play Final Fantasy XIV Online, and I don't plan on it. Because MMOs, you have to dedicate a lot of time if you're going to get into an MMO. But it looks like a very substantial expansion, a really cool update, coming July 2nd, 2019. That's fairly soon, so you don't have to wait too long if you're playing that. They showed a new trailer for Dying Light 2 after that, which seemed to be more of a... Oh, actually, it was a gameplay trailer. It was gameplay. It showed off quite a bit of it. It's coming spring 2020, and people know what to expect from Dying Light 2. It's more of that zombie killing, parkouring, kicking, shooting, slicing action in a survival, open world type thing. It looks like my type of game. I have Dying Light 1. I haven't played it yet, but I'm planning on it, and I might record it with my friend Andrew or someone else. I don't know. I'm looking forward to this game though, and hopefully it's good, because Dying Light was one of the best zombie games ever released from what I've heard, so if Dying Light 2 can improve upon it, that would be really nice. They did a quick rundown of 2 RPG classics coming to the West for the first time apparently, which are 2 Saga games. So if you know the Saga series, there's a lot of classic games in that series, and the 2 that they're bringing over are Romancing Saga 3, which I think is a funny name. I don't know, apparently it's a classic. But it's a funny name, Romancing Saga. Me and my friends chuckled. And they're also bringing Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions. But they're going to different platforms. Romancing Saga 3 is going to PS4, PS Vita. Surprising, it's the only Vita release I saw in this entire E3. Switch, Steam, Xbox One, and mobile. Whereas Scarlet Grace Ambitions is just coming to Switch, Steam, PS4, and mobile. So no Xbox One for that one, and no PS Vita. They moved on beyond that stuff. Like, those are games that people will play if they played it as a child, that type of thing. They moved on to another Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which they only briefly mentioned because they said it has over 35 million downloads, it's really successful, that type of stuff. The real announcement here was a new Brave Exvius game, War of the Visions, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which is basically just another Brave Exvius game for mobile. It has different classes and tribes, and it's going to have a lot of new content. They didn't reveal too much about it beyond that, beyond just the announcement though, and that's basically all they showed. They showed off some graphics and a little teaser. And then they went to another game by the dev People Can Fly, which is a studio that I quite like. I don't know. I believe that they did the... They did Bulletstorm and Gears of War Judgment. So the reason why I like them is because they're Square Enix. They fall under Square Enix's umbrella. But they're not the typical JRPG fare that Square Enix has, which is why I find it to be more interesting. Their new game that they're working on is called Outriders, and they had a cinematic trailer for it. They didn't reveal too much actually, they did talk about the game quite a bit. Sebastian Worcestershire talked about the game and said that there will be more info this winter. But it seems to be a post-apocalyptic shooter action-y game with maybe some magic or some spells going on there. There's one giant door at the end that opened up as light came in and the trailer ended, which might have some meaning. And it's coming in the summer 2020 to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. The creative director talked about the new trailer. There was a trailer after they showed the gameplay, or after they showed the reveal trailer. They did another trailer not showing the game itself, but it's sort of a talk from the devs of the game. Like, it was real footage of the studio. They talked about how they're working on it, what their ambitions were, that type of stuff. You know, the typical new game development fare. And it looked like they were quite passionate about it. But the real interesting thing is it's a co-op shooter in a hostile world. It's really dark, melancholic, there's lots of monsters. And it's 1, 2, or 3 player co-op. Not 4 player, 3 player. There's been a lot of 3-player co-op games at E3 this year. I don't know why. I guess people are slowly trying to get to more couch co-op games, but this is like they're starting off with just 3-player stuff, and then they're gonna grow later on. I don't know, or maybe it just fit better with 3 players with their vision, less crowded, you know. Regardless, seems interesting, and I'll keep my eye on it. Who knows if it'll be good or not, but we can hope. Did a new trailer for Onanaki, which is a game that was revealed before already, but it looked like they updated it quite a bit, and it showed more gameplay off in this trailer. It looked a lot better. It's releasing August 22nd, 2019 for PS4 and Switch, and it's another JRPG for people who love JRPGs and that stuff. Next is a big trailer for Final Fantasy fans, and this is Final Fantasy VIII Remastered. They showed a trailer for it. It was cinematic for the most part, though people know what to expect from it. It's the same as Final Fantasy VIII, just with updated graphics, pretty much. And it's coming to PS4, Xbox One, Steam, and Switch sometime. I didn't get a date written down for it. I don't know if they gave one. I don't think they did. And finally, they gave a big announcement at the very end of this presentation. As you can tell, they're moving from game to game to game to game here. And I like that a lot. I think they had a good number of things in here. The new game that they showed off at the end was one that people were really hyped for. The Avengers game from Crystal Dynamics. And it's called Marvel Avengers. I know, simple, but memorable. I like that a lot. Hopefully people don't get that mixed up in the movie. But the trailer, they first showed off a cinematic trailer for the most part. It was in-engine, they said, but it was cinematic. Showing off the story, the characters, which there will be 5 main playable characters at the start. Which let me see if I can name them off the top of my head. There's Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow, Captain America, and Hulk. Those were the 5 main heroes that you play as to start out. They showed a couple of enemies and teased the main plot. There's something going on with Avengers Day, which apparently was a holiday to celebrate the Avengers. Some big disaster went wrong, Captain America went missing, some reactor exploded or something like that. And then there was another trailer at the end of the presentation showing several, like a long time after that disaster happened. They have to band together again and figure out what happened, that type of stuff. Classic superhero movie fare, you know, except in a game form this time. Sean S. Cagg, the creative director at Crystal Dynamics, talked about the game quite a bit, and said that the story was about embracing our individual powers and learning that together we are mighty. Once again, typical superhero fare, that type of stuff. And they had the cast, the actors playing the 5 main characters here, talk about the game, talk about the characters they're playing as and how much they like them, that type of stuff. It was a pretty heartwarming trailer, which I liked. They didn't get the movie actors, of course. That would cost a ton of money if they did that. They're different actors from what you'd expect, though Hulk does look like he did in the movies, in my opinion. Like, Hulk looks pretty nice. The rest of them look a little bit different from the movie counterparts, but they don't look bad. They just look different. And then they had, once again, they had a brief teaser trailer at the end of this presentation showing what happens after the disaster at Avengers Day. They went into details about what the game is like, saying how, and this is what got me a little bit, this brought down my expectations a bit. It's going to be continuously updated over the years as a live service game. This is Square Enix's live service game. Now, here's the thing, live service can work, but I don't like the genre. I like to have a full game on release, be it a co-op game, an online competitive game, or even just single player game. I want it to be completed on release, I buy it and I get all the content. No, like, expansions, no DLC even. Like, DLC is alright, but I prefer to have everything right away. Live service games, you never know if they're going to be good. They might be lacking in tons of content at the start and need a ton of updates, or they could never get updated like Anthem. Hopefully this one turns out to be good though. If the gameplay is fun enough, at the very least it could keep people entertained for them to do new updates. And I did say they're planning on an ever-changing journey where they have a growing roster of heroes, and every new hero and region are at no additional cost, so every update's going to be free in this live service. And basically what this sets in motion is they can keep adding more and more heroes and playable characters and areas to explore, and new storylines and enemies and all sorts of stuff over time. I think this could work. If they do it well, this could work. Hopefully. I'm just kind of burned on live service games at this point, so I'm going to be cautiously watching this game. And if it turns out to be good, I might get it. Regardless, it will be a 4-player online multiplayer, so you can work together as co-op. And they did a little brief glimpse of a new update to show off how they're going to continuously update the game. And that is a teaser for a new hero appearing, Hank Pym. For those who don't know, I believe that Hank Pym was Ant-Man? Yeah, he's going to be a new hero added to the game in an update that happens, I assume, fairly soon, or maybe right away, I don't know. Since they showed off the hero right away, they might be adding him immediately. Regardless, he'll be the next hero beyond these initial 5, and the game is coming to PS4, Xbox One, Stadia, and PC, including some additional surprises for the PlayStation audience. They said that PlayStation users will get an early beta and several unique benefits that they'll reveal later, which I'm not a fan of. I don't like console-exclusive content. So this is kind of a bit of a negative for me, but it is coming May 15th, 2020. The game looks pretty though. As I was saying, I would describe this presentation as pretty because it was pretty good. I liked it. In fact, I think this was one of the best presentations so far of E3, especially for people who are fans of these types of games. They had a good amount of new content revealed. A couple off points. Some of these trailers, like the Life is Strange trailer, the Octopath trailer, were sort of unnecessary. But the stuff they did show, like the Final Fantasy VII stuff, Dragon Quest Builders 2, the new Avengers game, Shadowbringers, Final Fantasy XIV, Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC, Outriders seemed pretty cool too. Overall, I think it had a good mix of games in here. I would give this conference a B-. I don't think it's quite surpassed Microsoft just because it doesn't have the same number of games that Microsoft has. But the games that they showed off, for people who are fans of the genres, are quite nice. And I thought they did a good job showing it off in a good, well-paced conference for the most part. So yeah, good job, Square Enix. And after this, we only have one more conference left to do, which is Nintendo. And I'll probably do that tomorrow for one final conference. And that's the one I'm looking forward to the most because I have a Nintendo Switch and I'm hoping that there's going to be some good games to enjoy on there. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this E3 coverage and I hope to see you all on the next video.